I'm not going to lie and say that I've never checked in batteries, even though I shouldn't. But yeah.
So you said you traveled with your camera rig already done. And that's because we know you're a YouTube star, right? But so you're vlogging the whole time while you're traveling on these trips?
Welcome to Game Day Glare, a podcast for sports videographers. Today we're talking about road trips and safety tips with my man, Mr. Lance. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're actually talking about this subject because E and I have some upcoming trips. So we thought maybe we'd share some insights and some tips, some tricks, stuff that we kind of do on the road. And that's how this subject for episode 4 came about.
Yes. Well, my trip is actually TBD, so we'll see what happens. But I am preparing for it, so yeah, we'll see.
Out of both of us, E's had the biggest road trip because he just packed up his life one day and moved to another continent. So I figured it's a good topic then because he has a lot of insight on this.
Definitely. Not sure how many people listening to this podcast will relate to traveling with a server, but it's going to be very niche. But for those people, it's going to be very interesting.
So let's start off with, how about when you were working in Australia, professional sports? What kind of sports did you travel for?
A lot of the times, like most of my traveling would be domestic. Living in Melbourne, I would go to Sydney, Tasmania, other states around. So a lot of my travel would be, because it'd be like mostly for like one-off events. Like, for example, if there's like an international soccer game, or if like once a year, for example, like two college football teams would come and put on a game, like the same way the NFL does like a game in London every year, or the NHL goes to Europe somewhere. Like we would have one of those things going. So whether it's college football or other sports. So it was usually for those that I would travel, because the teams that I would work with on a regular basis usually were sort of Melbourne based, or if they were Sydney based, they would have a videographer over there, because it would be a bit expensive to have me flying once a week. But that was pretty much it. But then I did do some traveling internationally to go to Vegas most of the time, which is the trip that might happen in a few weeks. Going cover the UFC over there. I was going there with a podcast called Submission Radio, 2 guys from Australia who cover the UFC, and once in a while, probably every 3 months or so, we would go to an event in Vegas, mostly the McGregor fights, because they're more guaranteed to make money because it's all about the clicks. And
How does your podcast friends feel that now you're competition with your own podcast?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Like I don't know if they're listening. I'll have to ask. Actually, it's a good question. True. They got big guests, so we need guests if we want to compete.
So for me, I do a lot of day traveling. So I do a lot of corporate stuff. Like Hockey Canada projects. They're like, I'm based in Quebec. So I'll drive like a 4-hour drive, do a 1-day shoot, basically get player interviews, B-roll, and then come back home that day. I used to, when I was younger, go on a couple road trips with the Canadians. Now that's a pretty grueling process. Like everyone thinks, oh, it's so much fun being on the road, but like you're on a tight schedule. And now, I travel a lot for corporates.
I've done one of those actually.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on in the episode, I guess. But right now I just travel for corporate stuff mostly. So I have a trip actually coming up this week, and I'm going to Utah. Yeah, I'm going to Utah for a couple days, for 4 days. So I'll actually catch a Jazz game while I'm there. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'm reaching out to some contacts. Maybe I'll go check out their game presentation and stuff like that while I'm there. I still haven't confirmed everything because I got interviews the day of the game. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm done all my stuff before I go. Yeah, it's cool. It's always fun going on the road, but like anything, right? When you're on the road, you got to plan and prepare. especially for places you've never been before. Do you have any pre-scouting routines or anything that you do before you go to a location?
Definitely. Well, especially if it's like, because obviously if it's like somewhere that I'm flying to, then it's a bit, you can't scout as much. Like the traveling I was talking about earlier domestically, I was still flying to Sydney or to these other places. So in those cases, like it depends if you're filming a game, there's not much scouting to do, obviously. But if you're mostly would be like if I'm doing like a media day, I will definitely, if it's in my city, I will definitely go at least a week ahead to actually give me time to do something about what I'm seeing. Because like going the day before is not going to really help you much. Because like, what are you going to do? Like, other than knowing a bit more what you should bring or what you don't need to bring, like you can't react that much. But like, yeah, going like a week in advance, having a look at the space, figuring out like what your lighting situation is, where are the, electrical sort of outlets and access to water, even like all these things. The window situation, the noise situation, the AC, can you turn it off actually? Can you control it? Can you control all the lights? All these things, it's really, really good to know these things before you actually show up on the day of the shoot so that you can prepare for them properly and stuff, and knowing the size of the room, obviously. So yeah, if I'm doing like a media day type thing or sit down interviews, things like that, that's definitely something that I would try to prepare in advance. Otherwise, if I'm flying there, I won't, fly just to do that, but I'll ask the people there to maybe just film with their phones, like the room, and I'll ask questions about, access to electricity and all these other things, so that, yeah, I can get like an idea of what am I getting into. Because otherwise, like obviously when you're traveling, you're not bringing everything. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're in a room and you're like, fuck, I really should have brought an extra, a few extra extensions or a few extra lights, or like just things to block out windows or whatever the situation may be, What about you?
So what I do is I use Google Maps a lot. So what I'll do is I'll check out the area first, like the external area, because I'm already trying to think of, do I need any exterior shots? Can I fly my drone? Where's the closest camera store? Is there a place that I can maybe rent some stuff to if I'm stuck in a jam or something breaks? So that's the first thing that I do is I really go on Google Maps. I go on Street View. I check out where we're going. It's depending on what we're shooting also, but 9 out of 10 times, you always need that exterior shot just to kind of maybe throw it in your video or maybe start your video, something like that. So I'm definitely looking at Google Maps, and yeah, I try to find out, okay, where's the closest camera store? What is available to rent, or who rents stuff in the area? And I check out their website just in case. And then I have my basics. But like you said, yeah, I try and be in communication with the people that I'm going with and saying, okay, what's the room like? Show me the room, so I can figure out what do I need for lighting. Especially, so like, say if it's a big shoot, well, yeah, then I'm gonna have to rent lights down there because I can't be flying with all my light kit and all that. If it's just something small where I'm filming if I'm filming an actual sporting event or an event, then I don't need my whole light kit. I could just bring my run and gun set and I'm good to go. Yeah, but traveling, I like it. I like it a lot because it gets you a little bit uncomfortable, and you got to kind of think outside the box sometimes. And there's like, you see people send you like you said, a video of the room, and you're like, oh, that's perfect. Oh yeah, there's an outlet there. But no one ever tested that outlet, so it doesn't really work. And then you got to run to the closest Home Depot and buy like a 40-foot or whatever, 50-foot extension cord, So being on the road definitely keeps you on your toes. Now, even equipment-wise, traveling has changed the way I buy equipment now too. I try and buy stuff that's like lighter, more compact. I really test the limits of my equipment. Like, I won't go and buy the biggest tripod. I'll make sure, can this tripod fit in my camera bag? Can it go on a camera? Can it go on an airplane? So it kind of changes the way I look at stuff like that now.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, because I had a similar thing with like my background. Like if I'm doing like interviews or a media day or something like that, like the stand for the background was just like a pain to travel with because it was so long that like it wasn't like a normal size, and then check it in.
So do you look for rentals when you're away?
Well, it depends what I'm doing. Like if I'm just gonna do like sit down interviews, I'm just gonna try to pack like a minimal sort of kit. But if I'm doing like a proper, depends on the budget, really. if it's gonna be like a proper, like for example, I did a media day for a basketball team in Tasmania, which is a different state in Australia. So there was no way I was gonna bring all the lights, and we wanted tube lights, we wanted fog, we wanted all that stuff. So for a shoot like that, I just hired a local gaffer. And I'm saying gaffer, I don't know if it's an American term or if it's like typically Australian, but the gaffer is pretty much a guy that shows up with a van, and his van is just full of lighting gear, like it's light stands. He's got like blacks to like cut off like light if you need to. He's got everything. He's got dimmers. He's got the whole 9 yards, and he knows obviously how to install it and manage it. So like all that's his. Like he's got backgrounds. He's got like all that sort of stuff. So I pay him like it's it's a key in hand sort of thing where he comes with all his equipment, and he's there the entire day. So it's like having a rental sort of store that just shows up with a guy there to sort of install everything.
So it's definitely worth the price, and it's less headache for you, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And they're local, so they've probably been there before wherever you're going. Not all the time, but so they're probably more comfortable with the location than you are, which is ideal, because if someone needs to be a bit comfortable where with the light and all that sort of stuff, it's probably that guy and or girl. So basically that just leaves me to bring my cameras, microphones, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, that makes it a lot easier that way. And to be honest, like if I'm doing a local shoot, I would probably do the same thing anyway. It's not really because it's a traveling thing. It's just if you're going to that level of, complexity in your lighting, I will hire someone that comes with everything, and I don't have to worry about should I, get 2 extra light or 3 or there's just the guy that comes with all his stuff, and then we'll figure it out. But I'll pay him to be at the scout as well, so that he, we can have that conversation on that day, and while we're scouting, like, how are we going to do it? Like, this is what I want to do. Like, how are we going to do it? Sort of thing.
Now, are you hiring like through Fiverr or Upwork or something like that? Because I've done it in the past. I had to organize we needed photos during COVID, and I hired on Fiverr. I was working for a company. They had this building that they needed shot in Dallas, Texas. So what I did is I reached out on Fiverr and I found somebody there. I got them to go and shoot what I needed and take the photos that I needed, and they sent them back over to me via WeTransfer link, basically. So where is it that you find this gaffer online, or where would you suggest people go to find their gaffer?
To be honest, this is a very niche job, so I'm not too sure how you would be able to find someone like that on those sites. But because for me, it was more like word of mouth. Like I know a guy who, and suggested someone. But I did hire like cameramen, videographers or whatever, like in other states, and I think I used like Facebook groups a bit, and yeah, I think it was mostly Facebook groups. But Fiverr is a good place as well. But like, because at the end of the day, it's not really where you find them that like will guarantee you like a better sort of videographer. It's more like just all it comes down to is like send me your reel, send me what you've done like lately and stuff, and based off that, you can tell straight away if they can do what you want them to do or not. That's usually I
mean, you're going to find some good workers or someone that fits your production very well, or you're not, right? And
yeah,
you don't really know till you get there. But definitely, I mean, obviously, if you have word of mouth, it's a way better process.
Yeah, it's always ideal. Yeah, exactly. It takes away the the fear of them just not showing up or like things like that. Because if they don't know you, like there's always a risk. But if they know a friend of yours, then the risk is much less, I think.
So do you have any pre-scouting or planning stories that you want to share, stuff that's gone good, stuff that's gone wrong?
The stuff that's gone wrong led me to always pre-scout, basically. So, you know, the horror stories are more when you don't do it and then you show up on the day and it's just not what you thought it was going to be. And then you have to adjust. And to be honest, I don't have one just like top of mind right now, but I've done some scouting. Like I remember I did a shoot like because in Australia there's a lot of like before a sporting event there's always some sort of a, it's called a welcome to country. It's done by like a Aboriginal person who's like the leader of the tribe of the territory that you're on, and so it has to be a very specific person. Like it can't be just any person part of that tribe. And but anyway, all that to say that like it was a big basketball event, so we did like a little video with that lady like on her land, and we were gonna do it like early in the morning sort of thing with a little fire in the background and the whole thing like sort of in the forest. And so we had to do like scouting at like 5 a.m, and this lady like she needs a cane to get around, so it was a bit yeah, it's a bit sketchy. It was like, oh, she falls, like I'm gonna lose my job. But yeah, it turned out all right. But yeah, no, it's these things sometimes, like especially when in situations like that where you're going in sort of the middle of nowhere and the situation where you'd never think you'd be filming, it's always a bit funny. And it's fun because like you said, it's like it's new, it's different, it's you have to sort of adjust and think outside the box sometimes. And yeah, that's what makes it fun, especially when it works.
I had a shoot last year in Florida, and we needed to some beach shots and stuff like that. So I go on my drone app. I make sure that the airspace is all clear because I'm Canadian. I'm in a different country. I'm making sure can I go here. There's one section of the beach that you can't because it's like restricted for like animal safety and stuff like that. No problem. No. So I wake up early in the morning. I'm flying this drone, and my drone won't go off more than 3 feet off the ground. All the airspace now is restricted. There's a nearby forest fire. So what they're doing is they're dropping planes in the ocean and grabbing water and dropping it on this nearby forest fire. So there's planes all over, but even though they're not really near me, all the airspace is locked down. So my whole day that I'm supposed to be shooting these drone shots doesn't happen. I'm only there 3 days. The second day, it's pouring. So now it's helping the forest fires, right? But it's raining, so I can't fly my drone. My flight was at noon. Basically, I got the shots I needed, got in the car, and drove right to the airport. I just made it. But like sometimes you can't control these things. You think you're good, and you think everything's great. And now, I was panicking. I'm like, I'm gonna have to like push my flight, I guess, because I really need these shots. This is everything else is filmed except for these couple shots. So it wasn't a fun situation, but at least it worked out at the end. But like, I wasn't expecting forest fires that would not allow my drone to take off.
Well, I remember once, it's not really a scouting story, but like I was filming was it the last time I was in Vegas? Probably. No, it wasn't last. Anyway, before the actual fight night, I decided, because like across from T-Mobile Arena is like this huge like car park, sort of multi-level sort of building, and that's where we parked. So I figured I'll just go on the top and get like this nice establishing shot of the arena. So I went there by myself, and I'm there filming on the rooftop, and at some point I see this security guard walking towards me, and then I realized like it was probably a month or two after that shooting in Vegas at that concert and I was like, oh shit. And So, here I am at this big Vegas event on the rooftop with a tripod with this thing pointed at the crowd. I was like, this is not going to go well. And yeah, sure enough, he's like, who are you? What are you doing here? Who do you work for? And that who do you work for question is always a bit tricky because, like, especially with the UFC, like, doesn't matter who you are, what journalist you are, like, every event, you're sort of reapplying for your credentials. So yeah, your credentials are not guaranteed from one event to the next. Like obviously, if you're well known and you're always there, it's pretty much guaranteed. But technically, it isn't. But my point is that some rando like me, you get approved. Like, but there's that huge you're lucky that you're here, and like don't do anything stupid because you'll lose that credential pretty quickly. So being asked who do you work for, and he's on the walkie-talkie, like I'm like, oh no, like if this goes through the proper channels, they're like, oh, that guy, like just scrap and get rid of him, and I'm there to work for a media, for some guys that hired me to follow them. So if I can't get in because of this, like I'm in trouble. But I think the guy on the talkie that he was talking to, like, was just didn't really know who to call to sort of confirm who I was or who I was working for, blah, blah. So they just decided, I was like, I'm just going to leave. Like, I don't want to.
I don't need the shot that bad.
Yeah, exactly. I already got the shot, to be honest. But I thought of doing like a time lapse, but I was like, nah, I don't need time lapse. Like, I'm just going to go. He's like, all right, just go.
But, it's true. Yeah. One of the stresses, too, on when you're traveling, especially for a sporting event, is getting your actual credentials.
Yeah.
Because you always show up to this place. No one, like whoever you're supposed to meet, for me, at least anyway, in the past, is never there on time. I'm there before them, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, hi, I'm Lance. I'm here to pick up my credentials, and the security guard looks at you like, what? And then you go to like a media desk, and then there's like a big stack of credentials. You're always on the bottom, and then it's like they're, how do they know it's really you? Sometimes there's emails with your pictures in it. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes they want you to wait for the person to actually come to confirm it's you. So it's a big hassle. But once you have that credential, first rule,
people talk. If you talk to one person about it, the guy that's sitting at the table doesn't know anything about it. Like, he doesn't know who you are. Probably maybe doesn't even know who the other person is, because that person at the table might be just like they only work on game days. They're not part of the whole. So yeah, it's always a mess. Actually, the other day I was at the PWHL game, and I'm told like, they'll be parking there. Just say your name at the gate, which I do. Obviously, they either forgot or, that person sent an email to the other person who sort of didn't read it or whatever. So anyway, long story short, I show up at the gate. They don't have my name. Like, so they're calling somebody. It's not really the person that I spoke to. So I have to explain who I am, what I'm doing there. So they're like, oh yeah, makes sense. All right, let him through. I asked the parking attendant, like, where should I park? Do I go anywhere? And he specifically points to like, no, just go right there. And then I go there, and then after the game, as I'm walking towards my car, there's like a ticket person like about to give me a ticket. I show up there, and like, dude, I'm here, what's going on? And he's like, all right, I'll cancel it. But I'm like, just to be clear, like, isn't this like, VIP parking, whatever? It's like, no. Like, this is like, you have to pay to be here 24/7. The VIP's over there. I'm like, what's going on with communication here? Like, wow, it was all right, but it was like, yeah, it was funny.
So I have two rules with credentials. Is one, don't lose it. And two, don't take a photo of it. Don't share it on your social medias, because people do not like that at all. But it's funny, even at the Bell Center, so, we have credentials, and one day I forgot mine. So it's not the end of the world. I don't have my card, my access card to get through all these, locked doors and stuff like that. So that's kind of a pain. I got to ring for security all the time. But I have to go to security desk and get a temporary credential. Now, I've been there for 22 years. I pass these people every day. Yeah. The one day I forget my credentials, it's like they've never seen me before. I'm like, hey, it's me, Lance, remember? Oh, okay. Then they're making all these calls. I'm like, guys, I see you 2 times a week. How is this an issue?
Well, I remember like Bob Gainey had a similar issue once with he had like an elevator story where the lady wouldn't let him like to a certain floor because he didn't have his credentials. He was like, dude, here's my here's my NHL Finals ring. Like,
Yeah, here's my Stanley Cup ring, honey. Yeah. Well, at least they are doing their job, but yeah, sometimes credentials can be tricky and tough, right?
Yeah,
but
it's always a bit of a funny.
You just want to abide by the rules and not get your credentials taken off you. So now that we've kind of teased it before in the story, we both worked for the Canadians. We both went on road trips for the Canadians. What was your experience like on the road? Like, I remember you went to an outdoor game. So I never did an outdoor game. What was that like for you as a road trip, the outdoor game? Because it's a big deal, an outdoor game.
Yeah. Well, I think it was my only one in terms of like flying somewhere. I've done little like day trips here and there, but flying, that was the one that I did, and I loved it. It was probably my first, actually, like sports videography wise, it was my first time. And I remember the first thing that I found really interesting was that it was my first time ever flying somewhere, because it was in Calgary. So it was my first time ever flying somewhere, getting out of the airport, and it's colder than where I left. Because, like living in Montreal, like usually if you're going somewhere, you end up like,
it's always warmer.
Yeah, you're going to Europe, like whatever. It's always warmer. It doesn't matter what season it is. But then, I got out in Calgary. Holy shit. But yeah, so that was my first thing. But and which was interesting as well, because we would film, like I would film like practice in the morning outdoors, and then the scrums and press conference stuff was indoors. But it was like a quick transition, and then you're trying to film those scrums, and like your camera is just fogging up like crazy. I was like, I never had that happen before. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I didn't have like something proper to wipe it with. So I'm like, do I just do it with my sleeve, or just leave it that way? Like, it just looked like Carey Price was in a sauna. It just didn't make any sense. I was just like wiping it. But yeah, that's something like I didn't really account for. And but yeah, no, it was fun. Otherwise, like, yeah, it's like in those days, you travel pretty light. Like, I only had like a camera, a tripod, and a microphone, really. But it was interesting to see. You get to know your coworkers a little better.
Were you on the team plane? Were you on the team plane?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't separate. We were on the, commercial flight being delayed by Manny. Because you remember Manny? Because his real name was Emmanuel, but everybody called him Manny. So when they book flights for him, they book him as Manny. And then, well, sure enough, when you get to the airport, it's like, doesn't match. So like takes like an hour to figure out that Manny means him. And, it is what it is.
So I remember my first road trip. It was during the centennial year. We started the season, we were playing Buffalo, Toronto. So it wasn't like a far road trip, but it was a 2-day road trip. We played a back-to-back. And basically...
Or Buffalo?
We played Buffalo first, and then we played Toronto after.
Oh, yeah.
So...
I thought you were going to a game Buffalo against Toronto.
No.
No offense.
So the Canadians were playing against Buffalo. I'll be clear. Canadians were playing against Buffalo and Toronto. So what I did is the team flew in the day before, because we were still doing the opener, the home opener, remember, videos. We were gathering material, and it was rush, because we were lucky that year. We started on the road the first 3 or 4 games, and then they were at home, so we had a little bit more time for highlights and that. So I flew out to Toronto. I had to rent a car, drive to Buffalo, which was a disaster because there was some issue at the border. I had tons of time. I ended up getting delayed at the border for like 2.5 hours.
When you go to Buffalo, at the border, do they ask you like, are you coming here like to work, or like what do you do for a living? All those type of questions.
That time, no. But if they would have asked, I would have probably had to say I was going to visit, because I didn't know what the restrictions were at the time. And I just had my camera, tripod, my camera bag, and a tripod. Because when you work for the team, honestly, you're just there for interviews and highlights, right? So you pack pretty light. Anyway, I get to Buffalo just on time to the hotel to basically catch the guys walking to the bus. So then I jump on the bus. We go film like the pregame, film a couple highlights from the game, film scrums after, to then get right back in the car and drive right back to Toronto now to get in the hotel around midnight. And then the next morning you have the routine, which is, you got practice at, you got to be at the rink by 10, practice from 11 till say 12:30. You're there till about 1:30. You do some more scrums. You go back to your hotel room for what? An hour and a half, 2 hours, then you're back at the rink again. So it's not as exciting or as extravagant as everyone thinks, because basically in 24 hours, you just worked, 18 of them. I mean, it's not hard work, but you're still running around and running and gunning.
Yeah.
But at the time,
overshooting because
yeah, it was my first trip, so of course I was shooting everything. Yeah. But two really cool things happened on my first trip that I thought was cool. So during the game, well, first of all, I'm in Toronto and it's their home opener, and their security guard goes to me, he goes, "Oh, you're here with the Canadians?" He says, "Oh, do you want to go on the ice and capture them running on the ice?" So I'm like, yeah, perfect. But meanwhile, in Toronto, it's their home opener, so they have projections on the ice. And Ian, I know when you work for a team and you have a projection on the ice, you don't want some idiot standing on your ice, which was me.
But the Canadians, did you have like a jacket or something?
Yeah, I had a jacket with the 100-year logo, all that. So basically these projections start happening, and now I realize, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be here. So I hurried up and I squished myself against the boards. And as soon as I saw the players coming, then I popped back out to catch them, So I was respectful. But at first, when the projections started happening, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm going to get in trouble. And back then, when we were younger, we didn't want to get in trouble for the Habs. We just did our work and we went home, right? Like we didn't mess around. So then after the game starting, for some reason at the Air Canada Centre at the time, there was no divider, no glass between people in the stands and the bench. So like Yaroslav Halak at the time was sitting beside fans. So I walk over and I'm like, oh, this is great, because we were using a lot of this footage for centennial pieces, a video that we were going to do, right? So I get right up there, and then I'm slowly getting more and more comfortable, and now I'm on the bench. So you got the coaching staff, and you have me with my camera, and I'm filming all the players in that. So Patrice Brisebois, I think it was in the second period, he gets cut. So at the time, the trainer, Graham Reinbrand, he's like, hey, Lance, you want to come? You want to get these shots? So I went back and I filmed Patrice Brisebois getting stitched up. You got the doctor in there and you got me. And I remember I still remember this day, Patrice Brisebois, pale stitch him up. He looks at me, looks at the camera, he goes, am I still going to be beautiful? And we're dying. So then after the game, the team has a quick little meeting right before they let media in, but I'm already there because I'm with the team. So I'm filming it, and then they have an announcement. And Graham gave me the game puck, which I still have in my living room, for my first NHL game on the bench. And all the players were cheering and laughing. It was like a big joke, but it was a really, really good trip, and it was really
you were crying.
Yeah, that's it. I was crying. No, but it was a really good way to start your first road trip. I got this, first of all, I almost went from getting into trouble to capturing a cool moment, like an up close moment with a player, because you don't really get to see guys getting stitched up, or you don't really get to, even when you're with the team, you're not really involved in the medical stuff, or you don't want to film that stuff anyway. And then to come home with a little souvenir that was given to me by the team, it was cool. Like I was really appreciative of that first trip. It made me feel welcomed, and it was a good story, and it helps me. It gives me some material for my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, it's fun sometimes to have these little moments with players, because like sometimes I remember like players, like I don't have a specific story to tell, but like players will say, oh, let's do this, and and you're like, yeah, I don't think so. I think like if I do this with you, like for you it's nothing, for me it's gonna get me in trouble. I might lose my job. they'd be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll tell them I said, yeah, I don't think it's gonna make a difference." Like, there's just like a certain limit of like, you can't be involved doing, I don't know, shenanigans with players, even if it wasn't your idea. Like, it's never gonna. Look at that guy. I don't know if you saw like that. The videographer was at Dolphins games, a Dolphins game where like the Tariq Hill, I think, like scored a touchdown and then grabbed his camera and did like a celebration with the camera, and that guy ended up getting fired, like just because you're not supposed to interact with players, around, and they're buddies, like they know each other. But so it's one of these things where you have to be very careful. But in your situation, obviously, it's different.
Well, but people don't understand too is, like when you're in the locker room with players, that's their safe spot. Like you don't go and bug them or ask them questions. Like you never ask a guy when you're in the locker room with him, "Hey, can you sign this for my kid?" Because that's his guard's down. Like he's just with his friends. Like you just be a fly on the wall. You just capture the moments. If guys interact with you, yeah, obviously you talk back and all that. But 9 out of 10 times, I'm like quiet in the corner, filming my shots, getting what I need, But like something like that, like where the players, like, they gave me the puck and acknowledged me. For them, maybe it wasn't a big deal at the time, but for me, it was a big deal because like I still remember that moment. They obviously forgot, like, oh, who was that guy carrying the camera? I don't know. Like none of those guys are on the team anymore. Yeah. But no, it was really, really cool, and I was really, really happy that moment happened. So, yeah. Where's the like a location that you remember or a place that you found really, really cool that you got to go to so far in your career?
Good question. I'm trying to think, like, if I go like Australia, I'd say like Australia has the MCG, which is like one of the biggest stadiums in the world. I think it can hold up to like 115,000 people or something. And so that's like an iconic as well, like stadium. It's pretty old. Like it's a cricket stadium, originally, but obviously now there's football and all this other stuff. But so filming there, being on the ground, all these things, that was pretty cool. Otherwise, going to the States, like going to like T-Mobile Arena, like in Vegas, and I did New York as well, Madison Square Garden. Like that's pretty cool because these are places that I always see on TV, but never really been there. So to have the opportunity not only to be there, but to be behind the scenes as well, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's something locally like in Canada. I think the Bell Center was it, really. Like just as a kid, you watch hockey all the time, so to actually be behind the scenes and see how everything works, and sometimes leaving so late that except for security, I'm probably the only person left in the building. And I would go sometimes just, like whether it's late at night or during a lunch break, like just sit on the bench and just chill and thinking like, this is pretty crazy. Like I'm just chilling on the Canadians bench, like drinking a leftover Gatorade. Making the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, having those moments when you first start working in like say the Bell Center, like sitting in the stands. I remember like one year, I'm like, what, on my lunches, I'm going to run the stairs. So like you have this empty arena and you feel like a pro and you're running the stairs on your lunch, and this is great until in the afternoon when you go to walk to your car and you can't walk, But so for me, I'd say last summer, I was lucky enough to be hired for this corporate gig, and they rented out the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So I got to Atlanta. We had pardon?
ATL.
Yeah. So I didn't know at the time that the Hawks play pretty much across the street in their arena, and then you have their big Congress Center.
Just got a new quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. I'm a Vikings fan, so I did like Kirk Cousins, but he never pulled it off in the playoffs. So we'll see. So anyway, I get to Atlanta and we have a conference in the conference center. So then what I did is I flew my drone over the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is honestly, it's It's a pretty big stadium, man. Like it's impressive. Like, working in hockey, every arena you go to, well, yes, the Bell Center is the biggest one, but they're all very similar in size. But you go to an NFL stadium that fits 75,000 people. It's impressive. So we go there for this private event, and now they've rented out the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Nobody else is in there but us. So we're in the AMG lounge to have a party. So, I'm doing like recap of the party and all that stuff. And then it's like, okay, let's go check out all the Falcons room and that. And wow, like the NFL room compared to NHL room, it doesn't even compare. You could fit 3 locker rooms, maybe 4 in there. Like I couldn't believe how big this room was. And just their weight room and all their equipment, like it's next level. Like hockey is impressive for a pro sport, but football is a whole other beast. I mean, you do also have double the amount of people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
And then I didn't realize in Atlanta, the MLS team plays there too. So you have the Atlanta United. So we went and checked their room. Now their room is more similar to an NHL room, like size-wise and that. But it was really, really cool. Like, so, we're on the field. We're checking out both locker rooms. And then I got to go around. I got all B-roll of like, seating and different angles of the stadium and all that for the video. But one of the coolest things about the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, at least by the players' locker room, is they had like 2 limited edition Maybach cars that I've never even seen before. And like I was talking to one of the security guards, and he's like, buddy, don't even get too close to that car. It's going to cost you money. He's like, this car is so expensive. It was like a 1-in-1. It was just like a show car. Like it was like a pre-production car that they had there, and it looked like something from the future.
Yeah.
Like, you see all these new EVs, the concept and that. Well, this was definitely one of those, and it was cool. It was like right there, just before you went into the lounge, right near the locker room. This car was just parked there, and it was beautiful. And they had like such a nice setup, a backdrop, and that. It was pretty cool. And they had a couple of vehicles like that placed around the stadium, but the one in front of the players' locker room at the time was definitely a cool concept car. It was really neat to see. And like working in pro sports, like say at the Bell Center, like I know my way around all the secret doors and all the secret exits and that. So it's neat when you go to a stadium like as big as that and see how the players maneuver or where the player parking is and that. Except we have a private event, and it was like going to an NFL game with the security they had for our private event. Like I had like 3 checkpoints where they went through my camera bag. And I'm like, but I just checked it there, guys. Like, what's going on? Like, but they were very, very thorough. And it was definitely a cool experience. And I honestly, like, every sport is so different, but it's really neat to see the differences, at least behind the scenes, like, and if you have the chance. So that was definitely a cool trip, because NFL is the only sport I haven't filmed, like, professionally. Like, I filmed every other sport, like from UFC, PGA, well, we have CFL here. I film CFL, but NFL is different, like we're lucky the Raptors come, so I get to film NBA games sometimes in Montreal too, but NFL has never come. So it was at least a chance to get inside an NFL building and film some material there. So it was definitely a cool trip. And Atlanta, it was really hot. It was hot in the middle of summer. And it wasn't far. It was just when training camp was starting. So there was already starting to be a little bit buzz around the team and that, and they were starting to get ready. So, you got to see they were getting jerseys ready and stuff like that as we were looking through the locker room. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's nice. So when you go to like places like that, what do you pack? Like, for example, like, knowing that you're going to go through customs and all that stuff, like, do you think about that? Does it affect the way you pack, where you bring, those other things?
It's funny. Clothing-wise, I'm a minimalist, okay? But camera-wise, I always bring too much stuff. Yeah. My camera bag is always way too heavy. I'm like, why did I bring a clapboard? I don't need this. Or why did I bring that? But I am getting better. And I'm always worried about batteries. Now, I don't know. I haven't had any problems. Let me knock on wood. But I'm always worried about batteries. So like, I'm never sure, like, what batteries can you bring Is some stuff restricted? I mean, I always make sure they're on my carry-on. My camera never leaves my side. I'll never check it, only because, you know, if something happens to your camera on a trip, you're going before you even land, you're screwed. So I always make sure I have that stuff with me. And I think as long as your batteries are in your carry-on bag, you're okay. So like, you know, I'll have maybe one or two cameras, 2 lenses, drone, mics, extra batteries, gaffer tape or tape just in case, you know, to write stuff down or mark places on the floor, stuff like that. This trip actually will be the first time I'm traveling with a Molus 100 light. So it's a new light that I got. It's a 100-watt light. It's the size of an iPhone. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little worried about the battery though, because it's not a V-mount battery, but it's not far off. So I'll give you an update how Customs is with the battery.
Yeah.
And I also bought an Aperture Mini Dome 2 to put in my carry-on. So that I'll check, but to have a softbox. So we'll see how that goes. It's like the exact same size as my carry-on bag, and I haven't tried putting it in there yet. And I'm renting a light stand down there, so that way I don't have to, because you can't bring a light stand and a tripod and a gimbal all on your carry-on. So and I will have my gimbal also, because I do need it for some shots. But at least it comes apart, right? So my camera bag's gonna be
so you have one carry-on and one checked-in luggage.
Well, no, one personal bag, which is my camera bag, and then my carry-on is my clothing.
Oh, okay. So nothing's checked.
Nothing's checked, no, because unfortunately I didn't book the flights, so I have 1 or 2 stops. So nothing is getting checked.
Yeah, that's probably a safer.
Yeah. But it's always challenging bringing your gear, right? So I try. Honestly, even when I have a local shoot, I try to pack the same stuff. I try to get used to the same stuff, but there's always something that you forget or something that you didn't think of, and that's where, you know, you got to take that quick run to the store and pick up something, or you just go without. What about you? What do you usually pack?
Well, I was gonna say, like, when you're driving, the good thing is like you can always just overpack, but put that extra stuff, basically like just leave it in the car. And so at least if you end up needing it, like, I don't know, like a backdrop or an extra stand or extra light or whatever, like all this, you might not bring it out of the car, but you'll just leave it there. So that way, if you do need it, you know, it's accessible, but you're not going to bring everything to the shoot. But when I'm flying, obviously depends where I go, but like having like a backup camera is always good, because that's the thing. Like I don't really know, you know, like it's usually, especially if it's a fly in, fly out situation where I'm going there in the morning and leaving that night, like there's no time to like, oh, if something fucks up, like I need to go to the store and blah, blah. There's just no time for that. So, and if I'm going to another country, like going to Vegas from Australia, if something happens to the camera, like I don't really have, and it's a very sort of tight schedule as well for UFC. There's always something every day. So I wouldn't really have time to deal with issues. So I will always bring like a second camera. And like you, like if I'm flying domestic, like my camera will just be, actually it'll be all rigged up. There'll be like a lens on it, my monitor, everything's good, and I just keep it with me. But it's like a 1 hour, 2 hour flight, right? Which has been an issue once, because quick side story, like because I'm tall, if there's like a emergency row seat available, they'll just, you know, give it to me. And I was like, oh yeah, thank you. And it was like the first row, which technically wasn't even an exit row. It was just a way for them to charge people more money. but no one paid for it. So they gave it to me, and I'm sitting in this exit row. But now, because I'm in an exit row, I'm not allowed to have something in my hands when we depart and when we land. So like, oh, I'm going to have to put that camera in the, I was like, nah, that's not happening. But luckily, like I had a colleague of mine who was like 3 rows behind me, so she took it. But like I was having this conversation with the, with the stewardess, like I was like, dude, like you're sitting like 2 rows away from me, not even. Like if I die, you die. Like it's just like, I just think like the situation is just weird. But anyway, because she was giving grief also to this old lady sitting next to me because she had like a sweater. I'm like, really? We're in a situation where a sweater is going to like prevent us from getting out of the plane. Anyway, whole other conversation. But all that to say that if I'm flying domestic like you, I'll keep my camera on me. But if I'm, going from Australia to Las Vegas, that's like a 14-hour flight. Yeah, I'm not going to hold my camera on my lap this entire time. So I'll definitely, and for those flights, obviously we'll have like at least one, I'll have like one sort of checked in luggage. So I used to have like these big cases that were like all foamed up, and I have my two like C100 cameras and in there, and a couple more things, and I'd probably like surround them with like socks and underwear just to add, use the space, might as well, and it adds a bit of protection. And but yeah, when I moved from Australia to Montreal, I think because I had my server that I wanted to bring. So I think, yeah, I used that sort of big hard shell case in a similar way where I had the server in it and then surrounded it with clothes, and also had like one of my sound blankets, which are like very similar to like moving blankets. So I had that in there to really like try to secure it as much as possible. And that was checked. But I had like a proper sort of carry-on case where all my cameras and in my personal backpack as well, which was a camera bag, like I had like all my video equipment stuff basically. And so usually, yeah, if I'm flying somewhere internationally, I try to keep as much like expensive stuff like in my backpack, in my carry-on. But like, yeah, for a 12-hour flight, I'm gonna undo the camera and just try to make the most of it, because I'm gonna bring, like I said, a couple just in case, even if the second one will probably just remain in my case the entire time. But I just have to sort of play it safe, because that's the thing. You don't want to be in a situation where you're missing this or you're missing that. So yeah, you travel light, but you also back up the important things, like bring more than one lens, bring more than one camera. And batteries, like you said, are always a bit of a gray area where, like, because technically you're supposed to bring everything on your carry-on, but then there's a limit in size, which I think V-mount batteries are sort of at that limit. So depending on the brand and the size, so that's where it gets a bit tricky. Like, I think if you only have one or two, it's probably not going to be an issue. But like if you're, proper production and you're the guy in charge of those batteries, and you've got like 9 or 10 of them, then yeah, it can be a bit of a I don't know. I've never been in that situation, but I know that it's complicated. So I'm not going to lie and say that I've never checked in batteries, even though I shouldn't. But yeah.
So you said you traveled with your camera rig already done. And that's because, like, we know you're a YouTube star, right? But so you're vlogging the whole time while you're traveling on these trips? Like, do you set aside vlog time, or you just kind of have your camera ready, one of your cameras ready to go while you're traveling?
Do it that much, to be honest. Like, I've done it a few times, but it's really more because it depends what I'm going, what I'm doing over there, if I'll have time to make a video. But like, I remember one time going to a basketball game, and I just bought my FX30. So I decided to make the most of that trip, and I decided to use the FX30 over there, first of all, instead of my FX3, just to sort of test it and make a video about it. So might as well, as I'm flying over there, vlog too. But to be honest, the fact that the camera's all rigged up, it's more convenience than anything. I just hate having to undo everything and then put it back together, and undo it and put it back together. And also, it's just convenient to, like you said, if I do want to film something, and even if it's not just me vlogging, maybe it's just like a establishing shot of the airport, or a shot of, as I'm waiting for my flight, I'll go in the window and film like a couple planes like leaving, and I might use these shots later on. And so yeah, it's just more for things like that. Even as I'm driving, usually I'm not the one driving, like we'll just sort of drive to the arena or wherever we're going, and I'll be like filming some traveling shots, and maybe I'll get like a nice sort of shot as we're approaching the stadium or the arena that I can play in slow motion, and that's like, yeah, it's more for these things, and also to not be bothered, basically, because it takes away from, because it's the other reason, actually, now that I think about it, really is that if I only have a camera bag or maybe a carry-on, I want to put as much stuff in there. So having my camera rigged up and just keeping it on my person leaves more space in the back. That's another good reason to.
I've never done that, actually. And it's actually not a bad idea to have my camera ready to go. I could film whatever I want. I mean, I usually, honestly, I just whip out my iPhone usually, and I'll just grab what I need there. But when I do travel, the thing I struggle with is I always travel and I'm like, I'm going to film for myself, like some personal projects. Like someone's paying me to film XYZ, but I want to go and see this state park, or I want to go and get this shot. And I find that hard as to, you work for somebody else for the last couple of days, you're tired, and maybe you don't always have free time. But I always try to give myself, like, I want to see a bit of the city. Oh, okay, I'll grab my camera and I'll go and film some shots too. So I try to set aside some time for that. Do I always accomplish it? No. But sometimes I do. And then I film this stuff and then I edit it like a year later because I haven't had time to do it. Do you do that too? Or you set aside time like, okay, I'm going to vlog now, or I'm going to get some extra shots of the city, stuff like that?
Well, if I feel like I can, if I have if I do have the time to do it, like I said, like on that trip, like I basically planned the episode ahead. So I knew like what shots I wanted to get specifically for other than, game day stuff, like actual game stuff. Like I knew I was going to get there like way early. So I would have time to like do a little like me talking head sort of shots in the arena. Might as well do it there than, as opposed to do it in my office. Like, so I had prepared sort of what I wanted to say so that I can sort of go in different spots in the arena and film that sort of stuff. But I also, being mindful that if I'm paid to do a job, that's the priority. Like that I have to be available, and I can't be there and look like I'm just using this job to serve my own sort of YouTube purpose, because they all know that I'm on YouTube doing this stuff. So I can't just be like doing my thing and basically not being available when they need me, or not shooting as much as I should be shooting. So I was always very mindful of that. But if I do have the time, if I showed up like super early, then yes, I would do these things. But what I started doing, like especially in the last, I probably started doing that, I want to say two years ago maybe, is just, if I'm there for work, I'm there for work. Unless, like I said, I know I've got a lot of extra time. But because I know everybody, or even since I've been back here, like it's a lot easier to get access to these things when you can show how professional you are. Like if you look at my Instagram, like when I got in contact with the local basketball teams, like they see my Instagram, they see my YouTube channel, they can tell that I know what I'm doing. So it's a lot easier to get access than you think. Like you don't need to know people that much. Depends on the league. Like obviously the basketball teams that we filmed, then it's not like it's not the NBA. But anyway, all that to say that I started about 2 years ago just doing work stuff, just like focusing on work. But then when I'm doing my YouTube videos, just going to a basketball game or a football game or whatever, just specifically for the purpose of doing my YouTube thing. Like I'm not trying to do both at the same time, so that when I go to a game to test a lens, then I have the entire game to set up these comparison shots, maybe do a bit of talking head to the camera, just like focus on that. Because if I'm trying to do both, like either my YouTube video is going to be shit, or I'm not doing my job properly. So it was getting to that point where I have to sort of, and not to say that I'm not using some shots sometimes that I've filmed like while I was working as B-roll in my videos. But if I'm going to do like more like vlogging style stuff, I'll probably just go to a game on my own, just there to not being paid and just there to do my own thing. Because otherwise it gets a bit messy.
Actually, it's interesting you say that, because honestly, that's why I've never really done a YouTube channel like that. Because I'm at a sports arena every week.
There's not a lot of people doing
No, but I'm at a sports arena every week, and I've always think about it, but I don't have the time, and you can't, like, you need to focus on one thing at a time. Like, I can't be filming a game and then at intermission have my camera out and be talking and come back. Like, you got to be pro, and you got to show them, like, hey, I'm here to do this job. I'm not here to do both. And that, honestly, that's great. I do try it, like, on the road. If I have free time, I'll try and set up to do some stuff. But yeah, like, if you're there to do one job, you can't do both at the same time. So that's a really, really, really great example.
The flip side of that for them is that, like, if I'm going to a game just to do my YouTube thing, I'll then, because I'm obviously filming the game, so I'll then turn around, put like a reel of just like my best shots of the game, and I'll give it to them. So that way they have basically an extra cameraman for free. So it's a win-win sort of situation.
So if you could pick a venue to go to, where would you, what venue would you want to go to and check out and film there?
Right now, I'd say Domino's, but
Domino's?
I'm starving.
Yeah.
No,
we're not sponsored by Domino's, by the way. We do accept sponsorship.
Yeah, we're open. If I like a place I've never been that I'd love to work
film.
at. Good question. I don't know. I'd say probably and I've never been to like a proper NFL stadium. Like the size of it, like I've seen in Australia with the football fields and stuff, but I've never been to like a proper NFL game. I've been to an exhibition game once when I was a kid. They came to I was the Steelers against Patriots, I think, but like we're talking like in the 90s at the Olympic Stadium. Like it wasn't that great. But yeah, I think I'd like to, but to me, like the ultimate event, which now I feel is just being ruined and I'm never going to get the experience that I always wanted to get out of it. To me, the ultimate event was being at the NBA All-Star game, because basketball is one of those sports where even at the All-Star game, you could go all out. Like it's not like football or hockey where obviously the physicality of the game makes an All-Star game kind of boring. But basketball and baseball are sort of the only two sports where you can still sort of play all out. But, obviously in the last few years, basketball players have proven that it's not really the case. So it sort of diminishes the thing. But I thought what a cool sort of thing to be a part of, where you got all the best basketball players in the world playing each other. And that was like the ultimate sort of thing. But they would have to, I don't know, revamp the event somehow so that players actually care about it, because at the moment it's pretty boring.
No, exactly. So me for venue, actually when I was in Atlanta, I went to a baseball game too, and they have a brand new stadium. So it was kind of cool to go and see their baseball stadium. But I think I'd like to go and film at Yankee Stadium. Like go behind the scenes and see what it's really like. I've never actually even gone to the new stadium. Well, it's not new anymore, but it's 10 years old, I guess, the newer one. So I'd like to go to Yankee Stadium and check it out. And it's on my bucket list, and it's not that far. It's a 6-hour drive from here, so it's totally doable. But to go and work for somebody and have that access, not to just go as a fan and check it out, But I don't think you could fly a drone there. I don't think you can fly drones in that part of New York. There's only certain parts in New York where you can, so that's kind of tough. But yeah, I'd like to go to Yankee Stadium and see behind the scenes and check that out. Because I did baseball here in Montreal, and everyone knows that the Big O, or the Olympic Stadium, it's not a baseball stadium. Like when you go to an American baseball stadium, it's a baseball stadium. Yeah, you can see okay, I went to Fenway Park. You can't really see good because there's these poles everywhere, and that it's just there for the history, basically. But when I went to Atlanta, we were in the Home Depot Lodge, so we're right over where the home run section is, and the fully lodge, free drink, free food, all that. The biggest stress is you're in charge of putting up the Ks. Every time there's a strikeout, that's the job of the Home Depot Lodge. So we were taking turns, yeah. And then when it was my turn, I almost dropped it, because I had just spilled my beer, and then anyway, it's a whole other story. But I had to put the K on. Yeah. So watching baseball in a real stadium is a big difference to what I was used to. You know, so I really like to film at Yankee Stadium. Yeah. And plus, you know, working for the Montreal Canadiens, we have the most championships in the NHL, 24. That's all Canadiens fans talk about, is we have 24 Stanley Cups. But the Yankees have more titles than us. So that's why I like to go and check out their history. And, you know, I mean, if you were to ask 10 people name a baseball team, probably 8 of them are going to say New York Yankees. So that's why I would choose that stadium to go and film and check it out.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
This is the Q&A section, by the way, right? Of our episode.
Exactly.
We're just asking each other, because we didn't really prep travel questions for people, unless you reached out to anyone and asked.
No, that's true. No, I forgot. No, but that's a good point, actually, because I actually used to work in Sony, because I just realized that, like, my first job in Australia, I was a producer on a TV show called Houses of Glory, which was the topic of the show was like the greatest stadiums around the world, and we would hire videographers to go shoot for us in all these different locations, and one of them was Yankee Stadium. We did Camden Yard as well, like the Orioles.
In Baltimore. Yeah,
Baltimore. That was a good one as well. More for the historic side than the you know, the design or whatever. But we did, like, I'm trying to blank. Like we did Notre Dame as well. Like
oh yeah, an NCAA. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. We didn't go ourselves, unfortunately. We would just hire people, and they would go.
Yeah, that would be a cool place to see.
Yeah, definitely. That looked cool. But yeah, we did a few different places, and a few in Europe as well. I ended up visiting, actually, you know, where Barcelona. Like, it's a whole. And it's interesting in Europe because, like, well, especially Barcelona, like, it's this whole campus where, like, there's the football stadium, but there's also the hockey arena, the basketball arena. It's this whole thing. It's like a compound, and they're all sort of in that same spot. So it's pretty impressive. But
that's how the universities are, right? In NCAA, like, you have like, say, Florida Gators, like that's who we follow because I have family in Florida. So they have their football stadium, they have their baseball stadium, they have all their practice facilities. These are big complexes, you know, and them too, they get like 70,000 people a game. So you can go there and film multiple sports in multiple days, all these different stadiums, you know. But I mean, I was more focusing on pro sports, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool structures out there. And the thing is, nowadays too, every year there's always a new one. Like, look at Vegas, they're going to build now a baseball stadium. It's going to be pretty awesome. Like, on the Strip, you have like
finished the football one like last year.
Yeah, exactly. You got the football one, you got where the Knights play, and now you're going to have where the A's play. It's going to be pretty interesting, you know, especially sports down there. You're going to have 3 stadiums all in the same street.
I'm actually quite surprised. I didn't think professional sport was going to work in Vegas because, like, well, I sort of underestimated the fact that now there's a lot of people in Vegas that are actual locals. Because to me, it was like, you know, go back 20 years, like, no one was local. Everyone living in Vegas, like, was coming from somewhere else. So there wasn't that attachment. I think now there's, like, people who've been spending, like, you know, 20, 30, 40 years, and they had kids in Vegas, and their kids, that's all they know. And so, yeah, I was pretty impressed by how the Knights have been going so far. And, well, they did really good as well, which helps. But I thought it was just going to be like comps, basically, just hotels giving free tickets to hockey games and people, like, not showing up half the time. And it was just going to be like this gimmick sort of thing. But props to them. Like, they're doing really
well, it's working. Well, I mean, because you have enough businesses that own season tickets, and then you have enough people coming in, traveling, and then now locals. But it's the mecca of gambling. So for sports, it's a no-brainer, especially now that gambling, like, I don't know where our viewers live, but here, when we watch hockey, there's Bet99, there's all these gambling sites that are always showing up. So for Vegas, sports and gambling hand in hand. As long as the players aren't gambling, hey, they're doing well. And pro sports is just growing and growing and growing. Like the prices of franchises, the prices of stadiums, it's crazy. It's big money. So Vegas seems like they print money there. So hey, they're going to have all 4 major sports, I'm sure, within the next 5 years. NBA is going to do an expansion there. So we'll see. Maybe we'll have to do a Vegas road trip, you and me, and we'll go and do all 4 stadiums once they have all 4 pro teams. We'll go in that sweet spot in October when everything's playing at the same time.
Exactly.
We'll capitalize. All right.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I guess that's it about traveling and tips and sports videography. A couple stories here and there from our past. If you guys have any...
You got to go pack, actually.
That's it. I got to go pack, actually, because I'm leaving in 2 days. If you guys have any...
Some of those tips.
That's it. And I'll let you know if the tips from this show help me out at all. And if you have any comments or if you guys want to share road trips you've been on, leave the comments down below and on our socials. And that is it. See ya.
See ya.